Alright everyone, so I just wanted to give you my take and quick overview of what I thought were worth talking about for E3 of 2015. Overall, I generally thought, for the most part, everything was pretty top notch. I'm going to start with Microsoft. Some of the games that they showed, it's like, okay, I kind of knew about them already. So say like Halo 5 Guardians, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Those two I kind of knew about. But they did show off some other games like the next Gears of War, so Gears 4, and they're also doing a remake of the first one, which is actually really cool. But there are two games that Microsoft announced that I'm buying day one. And both of them is from Rare. So you got the 30 games anthology. I'm definitely picking that up. No question asked. You know, I love the games Rare did, you know, back in the N64 days and even before then. Even some of the games during Microsoft, you know, they generally had some good stuff. But when it came to their Kinect-focused types of games, it's like, okay, Microsoft, let's just stop doing the Kinect. Get them back into making like more proper types of games. And it seems like they're finally doing that, which is really awesome. So it's like this pirate ship type of game that looks really, really interesting. So those two games right there, those are day one purchases for me. Apart from some other stuff that Microsoft talked about, there are two other fairly big things that Microsoft announced. One of them is a new controller, which is their Elite controller, which is, if you ever heard of those SCUF controllers, where they basically add like extra buttons and triggers in the back of the controller so that you don't really have to take your thumbs off of the control sticks. Well, Microsoft is making an official version of that, which is going to be $150. I don't know if paying that much for a controller is worth it. I would like to try it out and see how it is. Personally, for me, I don't really see a need for it, but I can understand how some people would actually want something like this, or at least an official version. So honestly, it would be kind of interesting if Sony announces like their version of a PS4 SCUF controller. We'll have to wait and see, but I mean, it is pretty interesting. I don't know if it's $150 worth it, but at least that version has an actual headphone jack in it. So I guess give it 2 thumbs up. Anyway, but another thing they announced is backwards compatibility on the Xbox One. It's pretty interesting how they're announcing this, you know, about 2.5 years after the release of the system. But it's a better option than no option at all. But of course, the best option would have been, you know, to have full backwards compatibility. But, you know, they're obviously going to the software route. But it's a little weird how they're doing this, to be quite honest with you. From what I understand is that, yes, you'll need the disc to play it. But the way it's going to work is that when you put the game in, if it's a compatible game, then it's going to download a new copy straight from Microsoft onto your Xbox One hard drive. Which is not really reading the disc off of, it's not reading the disc. It's just saying what kind of game it is. Then it's going to download the actual program or the actual game that's been coded to work on the Xbox One. And that is a little bit weird, to be quite honest with you. Maybe this was an easier way to get around this, but I really wish that it was more like a standard type of emulation type of setup, where it's like, okay, it's just a standard Xbox 360 emulation. Try the games out. If it works fine, great, play. But if not, we'll just add it to the list. It seems a little weird. It is a little weird, but I understand that this was a way to kind of get around that. But it doesn't really seem like it's a backwards compatible. It's just more like taking the 360 game and just quickly coding it so it runs on the Xbox One. So I mean, it's not like it's running emulation. They're just adding new actual codes, which is why that Microsoft has to ask permission from the third parties to add those games to the list. Because, if we've been seeing a particular trend recently, it's like, oh, no, why we're going to let you do that? We'll just do a remake and charge another $50, $60 for the same fucking game. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my quick overview of Microsoft's E3. Now let's go over to Sony. Sony, I'll be honest with you, I really thought that it's like, okay, they'll announce a couple of games, but it's not going to be nothing that special. I'll be honest with you, I was actually quite impressed with what Sony showed off. I'll be honest with you, it was actually kind of a big nostalgic trip. And I'm going to admit two things here, okay? I'm not big into RPGs, so I'm not a big Final Fantasy player, but I do understand why so many people love Final Fantasy VII, and the fact that they are doing a remake of, or at least Square is doing a remake of Final Fantasy VII. Okay, that's really cool. Big props, for people that are into the game and that wants a remake. Well, you guys are finally going to get that. Another big showing is Shenmue 3. Now, I'm not the biggest Shenmue fan out there. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Yes, I played it. I played it on the Dreamcast, and I also played Shenmue 2 on the Xbox. Do I still have Shenmue 2 somewhere? I'm going to have to double check now. But, yeah, they announced that there is a Shenmue 3 that's going to come out. Well, let me rephrase that. They announced a Kickstarter to fund the game so that Shenmue 3 will get made. And there was a lot of misconception going around with Shenmue 3, basically because Sony announced it, and a lot of people started thinking, it's like, wait a minute, why we're funding this game if Microsoft or if Sony is going to fund this game? Well, then it came to find out that, okay, seems like there was a lot of clickbait going on with that, and it seems like what's going on is Sony is going to market the game, but they're not actually funding the game, which actually makes a little bit more sense since they are slating this game for PS4 and PC, which is why would Sony want to fund a game if it's not truly exclusive to the system itself. I'm looking at you, Street Fighter V, which they also showed off. Game looks good also, but let's get back to Shenmue 3. I do understand there's a lot of people out there that absolutely love this game, and I can understand why. For me, it's kind of a slow-paced game. It's actually a little too slow for me, but I did seriously try to get into it. I just couldn't. I played them, so I guess in a way I kind of supported the game without actually playing it all the way through. But I did watch the movie version from Shenmue 1 on the Xbox. That was actually a nice way to get caught up. But yeah. So, apart from those two, those are some really big titles being announced. Now, other games they showed off from Sony. There was this, obviously the next Uncharted game. It looks good, I've always liked the Uncharted games. I'm not a big Uncharted fan, but I did play all of them, mainly for the story. I'll be honest with you, I never really cared about the multiplayer. When it comes to multiplayer, I tend to just play certain types of games for multiplayer only, and everything else I pretty much ignore. So, yeah. So, multiplayer for the most part, I could really care less, which is kind of surprising for some, since, I subscribe for PSN and Xbox Live. But, anyway. What else does Sony announce? Oh, there was one from Guerrilla Games that has a female lead. Damn, I'm not getting. What was that game called? Damn it, I'm getting a brain fart. Anyway, it looks nice. I want to see more of it. It does look pretty interesting. But the reason why I'm not really remembering the name is because of another big title that Sony announced. The Last Guardian. Holy crap. I seriously thought this game was completely dead. And then it's like, holy crap, Last Guardian is actually coming. And then I started reading into it, and there was a reason why the game was in development hell. It's because what they wanted to do with The Last Guardian, the PS3 just could not do it, hardware-wise. It was not powerful enough to do what they wanted to do. So it kind of made sense to just hold off on development, bring it over to the PS4, and continue that on. So I will say one thing, when The Last Guardian does come out, I will be playing that, because I'm really interested in that game. I want to see exactly, how the game plays. It's coming from the same studios that did Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. I did play both of them. They're both really good games. So, if you have a PS2 or you have a PS3 with full backwards compatibility, go track those games down and try them. They're really worth it. So that was the main points with Sony. Sony had a really good showing also. And let's get down to Nintendo. And here's the thing. I know there are some people out there, in fact there are some friends of mine that are going to tell me that I've always preferred Nintendo over the other consoles. That's not necessarily true. Okay? And here's the thing. Is earlier this year I made a video on why I'm disappointed with the Xbox One and PS4. I was basically stating that the games that are coming out are pretty much the same on both systems. Okay? And being that now, after over 2 years of these consoles being released, we are finally getting some unique exclusives on both systems. Like, okay, now I'm starting to see some really cool games that are about to come out, and now I'm not feeling so bad for owning the consoles now. On Nintendo's side of things, I was looking at their digital press event. It's like, okay, Star Fox looks really cool, but there were 2 games that Nintendo didn't talk about during the digital press event. That was the next Fatal Frame that's going to come out later this year, and Devil's Third. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is Nintendo not talking about these games? I mean, they're funding the game, they're publishing the game, why don't they just talk about it? I'm not understanding Nintendo's mindset here, because here's the thing. Nintendo makes some awesome, great games, but I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of lost for words for what Nintendo did this year's for E3. Okay? And it's pretty evident by some of the games they announced. So many people, it's just like very pissed off. Especially the one with the Metroid Prime Federation Force. Holy crap, was that game getting so much bad press. If they just announced that game and just said Federation Force and not including the Metroid Prime game, I think more people would have been more keen on it. But the fact that they're using the Metroid Prime game in a game that doesn't have Samus, it takes place in the Metroid Prime universe, but it doesn't really have a connection per se with Samus, which is a little bit weird. And a lot of people were saying it's like, oh, this is like the next the next Metroid Other M. I'll be honest with you, it's like, yeah, the voice acting, the way they were telling the story is a little bit on the cheesy side, but in terms of the gameplay, I actually thought Other M was actually a good game. Maybe I'm going to be in the minority for this, but that's one of the few Metroid games I actually completed all the way through. But I can certainly understand why people will be really upset about this particular version of Federation Force, because I completely understand that people want a new generation of a proper Metroid game, and this isn't it. Okay. Yeah, I can completely understand that. But in terms of their digital press conference, the only two games that I was mildly interested in is Star Fox Zero, which is actually being developed by Platinum Games. It's like, okay. Some people were complaining that the graphics looks kind of simple. But if you played the Star Fox games in the past, they weren't really graphically, I don't want to say graphically impressive. They were sharp games, well, at least during the time, but they just had that more simple look to it. And Star Fox Zero is kind of continuing that, which I personally don't really have a problem with it. But I guess I can see why some people would be saying that, but at the same time, I think the game looks fine. I mean, I think the game is going to play really well, but I think graphically, it looks fine. I don't really have too much beef with the graphics. And the other game I am actually looking forward to, and this is coming from someone that just said earlier that I'm not that big of an RPG fan, but Xenoblade Chronicles looks really good. And there's a lot of gameplay hours in that thing. Holy crap. We're talking about 40, 50, 60 hours plus of gameplay. This is something you don't normally see all that too often. You're going to see a couple of games that would come out, but it's not like it's not something that happens all the time. So, a game like that, it's like, okay, this game looks really impressive. And coming from Wii U standards, like, holy crap, this game looks really good. The environment, the world that they created looks awesome. I love how the game looks. That's one game that I do want to get. On the 3DS side of things, yeah, I'll be honest with you. Maybe that Zelda game, but apart from that, there's really not much. But here's the thing. I don't know what the fuck Nintendo was doing this year, but yeah, look, I already knew that they weren't going to talk about or even show the next Zelda game. I knew that. But why were they omitting Fatal Frame and Devil's Third? Those games are going to be coming out later this year. Why weren't they talking about that in the digital press event? Yeah, I know some people are going to say, oh, they got the Treehouse thing, but, the whole point of that particular digital press event thing that, their Nintendo Direct is, especially during E3, it's like, these are the games that we're going to that are going to come out this year in early 2016, and then they can use the Treehouse, to get more in depth. So I think if they added at least those games to it, that it wouldn't look so bad. I mean, let's just face it, Nintendo stocks dropped after E3. No fucking joke. Their stocks dropped after E3. Some people might defend it. I'm just gonna say how it is. Apart from 2 games during that digital press event, and yeah, that little Muppet Show thing that they did was actually really cool. But honestly, apart from that, Nintendo's show kind of sucked. And this is coming from someone that most of the money I spent on this generation has been on the Wii U. Has been on Nintendo systems. I'm looking at my shelf of games, and I have more Wii U games than Xbox One and PS4 games combined. And I'm already telling you that Nintendo's E3 show, honestly, was pretty bad. I really wish it wasn't, but I'm just going to state it how it is. So, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Leave those comments down below. Like this video, share it. And if you like these gameplay footages I've shown, some of the games I actually showed on here was actually coming from the PlayStation TV. Yes, I can now show off Vita games after Sony announced that the Vita, at least here in the US, or at least outside of Japan, is a legacy console. So, yeah. Anyway, like always, have a good one. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because that's always useful.